Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the Bitcoin News Show right here on the CryptoCast Network. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much again for joining us on this beautiful Sunday. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to go over. This is, again, our second week using Zoom, so hopefully we won't have too many technical difficulties. We might have a few, but we'll see how it goes, guys. We are screen sharing our CryptoCast.network website where you guys can find all the information about all of our shows, our iTunes links, Apple's our RSS links, and Twitter links, and all that good stuff. And of course, if you guys enjoyed the content like this, we really appreciate it. If you guys could check out our Bitcoin address there and donation, because this is, of course, a community-run YouTube channel. So we very much appreciate, guys, all the donations and feedback from you guys. So let's go ahead and stop the screen share and see what happens. We got everybody here, so let's go ahead and go through the quick fix section real quick, and then I'll introduce our panelists, guys. So real quick, we got Coinbase is going to face a lawsuit, guys. Coinbase must face a negligence lawsuit for allegedly botching the launch of its digital currency, Bitcoin Cash. So that is interesting, guys. Make sure to check that out. There was a whole lot of terrible things that went around with that, guys, in my opinion. So make sure to read to get more details for that. Square Cash has now sold $125 million this quarter in Bitcoin. Again, guys, they just keep killing it. Quarter two of this year, hundreds of millions of dollars every quarter, more and more people wanting Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is a legal form of payment in New Zealand. That's pretty cool, guys, becoming more and more of a legal form of payment in more and more countries, like Japan as well. And we have the Bitcoin Lightning Network expanding 100%, doubling its size, guys, in the first half of 2019 alone, which is pretty amazing. Lightning Network continues to grow. Pretty awesome stuff. We got Bakkt setting a September launch date for Bitcoin futures. There's been a lot of everybody wants an ETF now, and everybody wants custodial services now. But of course, this thing takes time, guys, and looks like Bakkt is finally setting that up. And LedgerX has launched their first physical Bitcoin futures contracts ahead of Bakkt. So that's pretty cool. So much demand, guys. There's huge amounts of demand for Bitcoin. People want Bitcoin. Then we got the Chinese manufacturer Canaan filed a $200 million IPO. That's pretty awesome. Canaan is a great mining company. Recommend you guys check them out. There's a lot of people running their hardware. Then OpenNode has struck an educational partnership to spur Lightning Network adoption. This is really cool, guys. Companies coming together in the space to create more education about these new technologies within Bitcoin, like Lightning. It is very important, guys, that more and more people learn about Lightning. It's it is one of the main scaling solutions for Bitcoin. And then we have an amazing article, guys, by Alex Gladstein. Yet again, the moral case for Lightning. Definitely got to check that out, guys. This is really awesome. The links, of course, for all of this are in the show notes below. And then finally, I discussed Bitcoin versus gold versus altcoins in a interview this week on blockslive.tv. So make sure you guys check that out. So with that aside, guys, let's go ahead and get into the introductions. Again, having technical difficulties this week using Zoom. I'm not able to allow the guys to have their video. I will figure that out. I enabled the video, guys. I enabled the video in Zoom, but for some reason, the panelists are still not able to allow their video. So I'll make sure to get that working for next time. But let's introduce, guys. We got Mr. John Newberry from Chain Code Labs. John, how you doing today?
Hi, Vortex. I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
Thanks, man. Really glad for you joining us. Really good. Really doing good, man. I'm really happy to have you. We've had you a couple times, and every time, John, you give so much good commentary, man. I really appreciate you being on. I know you're a busy guy.
Oh, thanks, Vortex. It's good to be here.
You bet, man. Then we got Mr. Will here. We got Will. This is really cool, guys. This is the first time on the show. Lightning Network Pizza, LN_pizza on Twitter, joining us. Will, how you doing today?
Great to be here, Vortex. Excited about it.
Yeah, man, really glad to have you on here for the first time, and I really loved your commentary on Twitter. You guys continue to kill it over there. Just letting people get their pizzas, man. That's what's awesome.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah. So thanks, man, for joining. And finally, we got Mr. Mike Olthoff from Coin Cards up there in Canada. Mike, how you doing?
Good. How about you, Vortex?
Doing great, man. Thanks for joining us. You guys have an awesome company over there. Of course, saw you over there in San Francisco at the Bitcoin 2019 conference. Hope to see you again next year. You guys were killing it over there. You had a great booth. So really glad to get in touch with you over there, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys, let's get this show started. Lots to talk about. We try to go for about an hour at the most. We try to respect people's time. We don't try to go too long. So we do try to discuss the week's news in a timely manner, guys. But here we go. Let's get some water first. All right, guys, the first topic of the day: Blockstream mining, a grassroots vision for redistributing Hashrate. And I wanted to have this as a topic because I think this is a pretty huge topic, guys. This is like an industry kind of shaking event here. This is pretty big because it does affect parts of the whole industry. So, and I think one of the biggest things here is that the fact that it was revealed that these guys, that Blockstream started this in 2017, which is pretty crazy. I think we'll go into that. But basically, guys, Blockstream started this mining hosting services designed for large enterprises, starting their first production mining pool, which is going to actually run BetterHash, which is really awesome. We'll get into that. They basically believe that Bitcoin holders and businesses involved in Bitcoin should take part in mining themselves. And one of the first, these guys are one of the first companies to even enter the Quebec hydropower market. So I thought that was really, really cool. And they're running hardware in that facility from all sorts of manufacturers, including Bitfury, eBay, MicroBT, and others. And what I want to ask the panels first today is if this is good or bad for Bitcoin. So John, let's go with you first. What are your thoughts on the news of Blockstream launching the service and the fact that they've had it going since 2017?
Well, mining should be anonymous, or at least miners have the option to be anonymous. So it's no surprise that people are mining that we don't know about. Yeah, I think more decentralization of mining is good. I don't really know much about the Blockstream mining operation, but certainly encouraging that they're using BetterHash.
Absolutely, absolutely. And because, the reason why I thought it was interesting, you bring up a great point, the fact that, we shouldn't know who's mining, right? But what's really great is that these guys were sort of combating the centralization that was starting to occur, or at least the decentralization degree that was starting to decline. They saw this in 2017 from actors like Bitmain and things. And so I think this is. Do you have any comments on that, for the fact that for the reason that they started this, maybe to sort of combat mining centralization?
Again, I don't know that much about what they're doing and what they've done. More entrance into mining is always good, I guess. But as to the specifics of what Blockstream are doing, I think they've been quiet about it so far, and that announcement came out this week. So I don't know much more than you do, I'm afraid.
Cool. No problem. We'll take a look here. Let's get Will's opinion on here from Lightning Network Pizza. What are your thoughts on this, Will? And, again, the fact that they started this in 2017, which my opinion, I think is just huge, because it shows that these guys were forward thinking even back then, trying to combat this mining centralization. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Blockstream's definitely in the position to have seen that. I do agree that mining should be anonymous, and I think it's really no surprise, considering kind of their other products and kind of overall strategy, to add a significant mining element. Doing a quick look, I mean, it makes sense coming on, Bitcoin's Independence Day. It's a good thing to announce now, even though they've been doing it for a while. But overall, it seems like it definitely is a improvement on the Bitmain approach. They're to operate with their mining facility. You can choose your pools. You have a lot more freedom, so it doesn't have the kind of centralization and unidirection that kind of Bitmain had and the control that they had. So I think that's good. BetterHash is also an improvement, but I would say maybe Grassroots is a little bit too strong of a word. I mean, we're definitely talking about a large single facility here up in Canada. But I like to see more entrants. So I think it's overall a positive thing.
Yep, very great comments. Maybe John, just really quick before we get to you, Mike. John, maybe you could just quickly give your thoughts maybe on BetterHash, because this is the world's first basically production mining pool that's going to be running BetterHash. Do you have any thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, it's great news. So BetterHash is a new, well, not so new anymore, but a replacement for the Stratum mining protocol. So the protocol that mining pools use to give work to individual miners in the pool. And the idea behind it is it separates the generation of that code, the Coinbase in the new block, from the selection of transactions. So it gives the individual miners the choice of which transactions to include in the block when doing work for a pool, which is really great for decentralization. It means that it's no longer the pool that is controlling which transactions get included, and the pool has less power to, for example, censor transactions they don't want to include.
Yeah, that's great. And that's really the whole goal. I mean, a BetterHash, this was created by, of course, Matt Corello. And I think that the community is really picking this up. If you think that's true, John, let me know, because, I think this is a really big win for Bitcoin overall, and the decentralization of mining. Because until now, one of the vulnerabilities was that mining pools could be 51% attacked. Is that right, John?
Sorry, can you say that again? Mining pools could be 51% effective.
Yeah, I was going to say, because one of the things that mining pools could be not 51% tax, sorry, but mining pools could collude to be able to censor transactions if everybody was not running better hash.
Right. So the centralization of mining pools is far more centralized than individual miners, right? A mining pool might represent tens or hundreds or thousands of individual miners, and so just because there are fewer of them, it's more centralized. And so they could potentially collude to censor classes of transactions that they didn't want to include. The idea behind BetterHash is it pushes that selection of transactions back down to the miners. And we know there are more miners than mining pools. And so that's better decentralization and better resistance to censorship.
Yep, that makes sense. And of course, to date, we haven't seen any of this yet. But hey, better safe than sorry, right? Let's start getting this thwarting these vulnerabilities while we can. So great comments, thank you, John. Mike, let's get you, man. Last but not least, what are your thoughts on the Blockstream launching this? Are you scared at all that Blockstream might take over all of mining, or is this good for Bitcoin? What are your thoughts?
No, I think this is good for mining as long as everybody doesn't all at once jump on this. Everybody needs to join the Blockstream mining pool, and then that grows to 51%. That would be obviously a bad event. I think Blockstream, they're playing it smart. I think they've got the electricity contract. They've got their own space, it seems like, but they're not actually investing in any of the hardware. So they're actually only doing a co-location type deal, which I think is smart, because I think that's probably where they're making their money. They don't have to invest in all of the hardware. They get their clients to do that. So they maybe make a couple points on the electricity, and they make some money on the actual hosting of it.
Absolutely. I mean, this is really good because, Blockstream has so many projects that aren't profitable per se, right? So they've got their awesome wallet, their awesome Sea Lightning implementation, the Block Explorer, which they open source. But this is really great because this is actually profitable. So I mean, the satellite stuff is really cool too, but I don't know that that's going to be profitable yet. But this is just with all of the projects that Blockstream has been launching. Personally, to see them launch this, I think for me, I'm just cautiously optimistic. I really think that Blockstream has a proven track record, which is great. Now, like you say, Mike, if the pool gets to more than 51%, obviously we don't want that to happen, but we do want people to join this pool, and we do want more pools to run BetterHash. And I think that Blockstream taking the plunge here, being the first major production mining pool to use BetterHash is great as well. So I think this is nothing but good news on my end. For me, guys, let's get some final thoughts. Mike, any final thoughts on this before we move on?
Yeah, like you said, I think it's definitely good. I think more pools need to come out. I think we need to get more decentralization. And Blockstream, at the end of the day, they're a company that need to make money, and this is a smart move on their end.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Will, let's get some final thoughts from you on this topic.
I think it's a good change in business model. There's some interesting things there. I would like to see this go one step further and find even more sustainable ways to have more decentralized pools that don't necessarily rely on a single company's effort. But I think we might see that some of those coming up soon. But I think this is a good step in the right direction.
Awesome. Great comments. All right, John, just final comments from me. I know you didn't have a whole lot to say, but maybe just some final commentary from you before we move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I hope that Blockstream won't be the only pool that uses BetterHash. I hope this will galvanize other pools to start using that. And like you say, it's nice to see Blockstream doing something that might make money, because as we all know, that the reason that Blockstream exists is so Zipper can continue to be paid to work on Bitcoin.
Absolutely, guys. It is important to note, though. Seriously, I mean, how many projects that Blockstream launches that's open source and that that they don't actually make money in, at least in the short term, right? The long term is what really what Blockstream seems to be focused on. When you look at Sea Lightning, when you look at the Liquid network, when you look at and again now this mining facility and using BetterHash, they seem to always take the long term approach. Any thoughts on that, John, real quick?
Yeah, they've got a lot of projects on the go, like you say, Sea Lightning, all of the kind of longer term research stuff that Andrew Polstra and Jonas Nick and Tim Ruffling are doing on the kind of cryptography side. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff, and it's not immediately obvious where they'll make a profit from that, but it's really important for Bitcoin that there are people funded to work on these kind of longer term goals.
Absolutely. It's not immediately obvious, guys. all the time where profit can come from, but in new industries like this. But it is important to make sure the industry keeps going and keeps pushing and keeps going further, guys. So that's really awesome comments, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to, or before we move on to the next topic, we would remind everybody to please give us a thumbs up on YouTube if you guys are liking this content. And if you really enjoyed this content, again, please consider donating. Donations help us keep going, guys. So we really appreciate everything. And of course, feedback in the comments. If you guys couldn't join us live, definitely hit us up in the comments. We're more than happy to answer any questions or have a discussion there as well. So let's move on to the second topic of the day. This one was kind of funny, guys, because there's all sorts of funny narratives in Bitcoin, but I wanted to talk about this. Personally, I kind of already have my mind made up about it, but I do want some discussion about this to go around about this. And this is, of course, Bitcoin wealth distribution. So earlier this week, there was a debate between Vinny Lingham and Dan Held about Bitcoin's wealth distribution. And in my opinion, Dan really won that debate by a large margin because he continued to cite actual facts, actual data, and on-chain data as well. So that's just really important because when people are trying to throw out hyperboles, when people are trying to throw out what ifs and all these crazy scenarios, I mean, guys, we have to look at the data at the end of the day to really find out more, to really find the truth about things. And because, there's a lot of hearsay, she-say out there. So what I want to do is discuss this a little bit, guys, because again, recently there was a debate about this and even a VanEck strategist called Bitcoin wealth centralization a myth, saying, quote, ownership seems balanced. And we've recently had some news about on-chain data that there is now more than 6 million wallets, again, approaching over $180 or 1 billionth of Bitcoin's supply. So the distribution is actually increasing, as well as, of course, most of the large wallets are, of course, custodying funds for millions of potential customers. So let's go with you again let's go with Mike first on this. We'll reverse it up. Mike, what are your thoughts on this? Is this even an issue? Should we even really be even discussing this at this time? Or is it is it necessary to have this discussion this early, even though the altcoins, of course, are far more wealth centralization than Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. Altcoins are a lot more centralized in their distribution, but I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here and say that that data that shows that there's tons of wallets out there with, $180. Wallets are built that way now to split those funds. So, I mean, personally, I probably have 100 wallets with 0.01 Bitcoin because I've been throwing it through mixers. So, I mean, some of that data could actually be construed. I don't think it's an issue right now. I've been through all the ups and downs of all these, waves that we've seen. And I've seen that, as Bitcoin becomes more popular, more people want it and more people are coming to you out of the blue just because you're the Bitcoin guy and everybody wants to buy Bitcoin at that point. So, I mean, as the waves kind of continue to go up, I think more and more people will just jump in there and be like, hey, I want to buy some Bitcoin from you. And it'll distribute through that. Obviously, we're going to have a few people who are going to have a large chunk of wealth, but that's what they get for taking on the risk of being one of the early adopters.
That's right. I mean, that's what Dan was talking about, right? That's what capitalism is allocating capital, right? With risk, with hopefully getting a reward later on, right? So that's what's really important is that the people that did get in early, of course, it's important that they get rewarded, but also a lot of people just seem to miss the fact that people need to spend their Bitcoin eventually, right? Like we're all human. At some point, we do have to actually spend that coin. So even if you're super wealthy, you're still going to have to spend it. And the smart people, from what I've seen in Bitcoin over the years, from what I've seen, anytime anybody gets somewhat wealthy in Bitcoin, they go and start a company to help Bitcoin. For example, your company is awesome. Coin cards, helping people, more and more people get Bitcoin. I think that's an awesome infrastructure level company in Bitcoin. And this is what I see, people just starting more and more companies. I don't see people just sitting there, right, like hoarding their wealth, doing nothing. We've seen many people give away lots of funds, even in donations as well. There was the big pineapple donation a couple of years back where the guy gave away, I think it was $100 million or millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. So it's really interesting to see how Bitcoiners use their wealth once they achieve it. Will, let's go with you next. Will, what are your thoughts on this? Is this really an issue right now? Should we be discussing it? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think there's always room for discussion of, the state of wealth distribution within the network and with other monetary systems. I think it's an interesting, can provide interesting insights, but right now, part of, Mike just mentioned, there's an issue with the data on I think both sides of the argument that doesn't quite capture the whole thing. But am I worried about it? No, we're talking about a technology that's 10 years old, that started with a Gini coefficient of essentially one person. And from there, we've only seen a very efficient outflow and distribution of Bitcoin into the hands of millions of people. And we have all of the data, Dan did a good job representing that, seems to support that trend will only continue. And so for me, being on the kind of consumer side of building, interfaces for Lightning Pizza, Fold, our whole thing is that it's up to the builders to create more on-ramps and accessible ways for everyday mainstream people to access Bitcoin. That's part of the reason why it's been so difficult. And you haven't seen, I think, as much acceleration in the distribution of it. But I think we are right on the heels of seeing some major releases, some good infrastructure plays that will allow us to distribute en masse and even accelerate this, what I think is already encouraging numbers for Bitcoin distribution.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And again, I forgot to bring up the point that Mike said. I mean, and this point can kind of go both ways, more decentralized and less decentralized. But essentially, because but what this does is it messes with the data, which is what Mike said, which is the fact that many people have multiple wallets, right? So that can really skew the data to both, the downside and the upside, to decentralized and not decentralized. Because I could have a bunch of wallets with 0.1. Or I could have just a couple wallets with a bunch of funds in it. So it's difficult to get the actual data we need to really have empirical to make empirical statements. So let's go with John finally on this topic. John, what are your thoughts on this on the discussion so far? Do you think that we should be having it, or is this just going to shed more light on the distribution that's terrible already in alts, or what are your thoughts?
I'm not much interested in alts, so I'll leave that part of the question. But I want to reiterate your point that what we can see in Bitcoin is a set of UTXOs, unspent transaction outputs, and how that maps onto individual ownership that we don't know. We don't know whether one UTXO represents Bitcoin funds held in an exchange by tens, hundreds, thousands, or millions of people. And we don't know if one person controls many UTXOs. And that's the design of the system. It's in the white paper that addresses are pseudonymous. We are trying to produce a system that is better than the current system. And one aspect of that is we want to create a private peer-to-peer money. And so ideally, this question would be unanswerable, right? We wouldn't see any of that data, and we wouldn't be able to know who owns what Bitcoin. I think just even asking the question, we can ask the question, what is the distribution of Bitcoin? But if you start making value judgments based on that, it's like, what is the question? You're saying Bitcoin distribution is unfair, and that begs the question, compared to what? I think Bitcoin is probably the fairest kind of money that we have ever seen, because there is, as long as you have some technical knowledge, there's no barrier to entry. Anyone is able to accumulate and buy Bitcoin. Now that's very different from many systems we have in the world in the current financial system. So I think we can ask this question, but ultimately the people that own Bitcoin are the people that chose to put that money at risk, and they've held onto that Bitcoin and they've continued to take that risk, and now they own Bitcoin. So I can't think of a system that's fairer than that.
And let's also remember too that that was a great point, John. But let's also remember too, like if we're going to say something is not fair, then we have to define what fair is, and that's what Dan's point was as well. Like, what is fair? Well, since that really can't be quantified exactly 100%, where everybody can agree, right? Then we just have to make the best system that we can. And as you say, John, and I think everybody here agrees, Bitcoin was like the most fair launch ever. By far. this was the most open system. And of course, Dan documents this well by saying things like how Satoshi lowered his mining, where he was actually mining first, and he lowered his actual hash rate until it was completely to zero, where everybody else could actually take over. And that's just really great. And remember also, guys, like Bitcoiners, once we learned about Bitcoin, every Bitcoiner I know, once they learned about it, they had to tell people. right? And we continue to tell people, and everybody on this cast today, on this channel today, is really advocating for Bitcoin and trying to educate. Advocating for Bitcoin education and really trying to help people understand this technology. And what does this do? This doesn't, this doesn't really help us per se. This actually is going to lead to Bitcoin rising, right? So this is actually preventing us from accumulating more Bitcoin. But yet we still do this because we actually believe in the technology that much. We believe that it can help people to that degree. And so we still, despite, hurting our pocketbooks per se, right? We still, for years, of course, continue to try to educate Bitcoin. And again, everybody I know that got into Bitcoin has been trying to tell people for years and years and years. And of course, we can't expect everybody to get into Bitcoin. But look, guys, I didn't benefit from, investing in Google or Amazon, but I still benefit from those companies every day. And the same way, I think that the world will benefit from Bitcoin in an extraordinary way, much more than the internet, even though they didn't actually invest directly into the companies or Bitcoin themselves. So again, this is just really, really important, guys. Remember, it's all about education. We've been trying to tell people about it. We've been screaming at the top of our lungs, guys, from the top of the mountain. We've been shouting for years and years. I remember tweeting as well when we went over 6K. For the first time, I think last year or 2017, we went over the 6K for the first time. I remember tweeting out, look, guys, this is definitely now beyond anybody's ability to really get one coin. Like, the average American's ability now to get one coin is now gone because Bitcoin's value continues to rise. Remember, before the first halving, everybody was trying to get 1,000 coins, and then after the first halving, everybody's trying to get 100, and then 10, and then now 1, and eventually, of course, everybody will be trying to get 0.1 after the next halving. So this is just how the economics of Bitcoin work, and again, why people have been shouting so loud and trying to educate people so much, because this is a paradigm shift, and this is what's going to change the world. This is huge, guys. Bitcoin will again probably have a greater impact than the internet itself, and in my opinion, will create more economic activity than the entire internet does today, one day. So with that aside, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the final topic then of the day. We're doing pretty good. 12:30. We still got half an hour to go. That's pretty good. All right, guys. The final topic of the day. Bitcoin is a human right by Nick Batia. I thought this was really, really great and sort of ties into our previous topic about how the ability to use Bitcoin, I think, is going to probably one day become a human right, just like the ability to use the internet, because this is the basic fundamental fabric of society now. So it's like water, right? Running water. We should all have a human right to have access to running water, electricity, the internet, and now, of course, Bitcoin. But I want to see what the panelist thinks, because the article argues that that Bitcoin is money. It's a land grab. It's a game. It works like email. It's a human right. So I want to get the panelist thoughts on this. So let's start with John this time. John, what are your thoughts on these claims? Is Bitcoin a human right, or should it be?
I as someone who's working on the code in a technical level every day, I try not to get ahead of myself and make grandiose statements like this. We know we're forcing you to do it. We're forcing you to do it, but we love you, John. I don't begrudge Nick from doing it. I get excited by Bitcoin, and I hope that one day it is the money that the world uses and the best kind of money that we've ever invented. And if that is the case, then it will be a tool a massive tool for prosperity for people around the world. I personally don't like making claims about people in Venezuela because I don't know any people in Venezuela. I hope the kind of money that I'm working on can help people in Venezuela, and I hope it can help people all around the world. But we've got a long way to go before we get to that stage.
And again, let's while we get the chance, let's say it again, guys. It's early days. It's really, really early days for Bitcoin. It's only been around for 10 years. There's still a long way to go. So great points, John. Will, let's go with you next to get your opinions. I mean, because again, like to me, if it's, I like this quote in the article. It's like asking, is human speech, is speech a human right? Right? Is free speech a human right? Is computation a human right? Like, of course it is. Like, so I don't know. What are your thoughts, Will?
Yeah, I think, that's an interesting question to think about. Human rights being granted. Are they granted by, a government grants you that? Are they kind of endemic to you being just a human and participating in society? The cool thing is that Bitcoin kind of answers that question for us, because it's at its kind of most base layer, it is permissionless, open, censorship resistant. And in some ways, it doesn't care if a government considers it a human right. It kind of allows for openness to anyone. Now, there are some technical constraints there, some knowledge. And so I think it kind of changes the idea of the technology itself is the very fact that the network is alive and up and running and robust almost grants this right to everyone in the world now as an opportunity to join it. However, there are some hurdles that we need to get over so that people can actually enjoy it as a right. But I'm not sure it's going to be one that's going to be granted, although we might see some of the opposite, where people tried to actually stymie it in different places. But at the end of the day, it's going to be pretty tough to do that. But I think it's early days, and we have only seen the beginning.
Yeah, great points. Early days, guys. But yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see, because we're going to have to, as a society, sort of decide like who's going to give us our rights, right? Are we going to take the rights, or are we going to like try to create a government that might give us some if we're lucky and we're not a terrorist? But we're going to have to figure that out, guys, as a society. Mike, what is your comments on this topic so far? What do you think about Bitcoin being a human right?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if Bitcoin itself is the thing that can be considered a human right. I think the whole store of value and being able to exchange value in order for your necessities in life is a human right. And I think Bitcoin is one of the tools that actually allows to do that without any sort of control from central authorities. And so I think that's kind of what leads it to be mixed in with that. Is it a human right? I'm probably one of the biggest, people that personally know me know I hate banks. And I've had so many issues with banks, like setting up bank accounts, keeping bank accounts. So Bitcoin just kind of lets me trade with who I want, when I want. And I feel that that's a human right. Bank accounts maybe are not a human right. Maybe they are. I don't know. There's so many unbanked in the world that can just turn to Bitcoin and have that ability to just transfer value when they need to. And, in the end, just live.
Yeah, it's great points. I mean, maybe Bitcoin itself isn't the human right, but it facilitates the ability to have human rights, right? Like having a store of value, like having the ability to transact with anybody you want in the world. Yeah, I mean, and again, it's built up things that should be human rights, right? Like free speech. It's built off of code. It's built off of math. Everybody should have the freedom to compute, right? So yeah, great points, Mike. I definitely agree with that. I think we'll do final topics or final comments on this topic now. John, any final comments on this?
Yeah, I think those were interesting points raised about what exactly do you mean by human rights, and is it something that's granted by a government, or something that inherently we take for ourselves? The ethos behind Bitcoin, I think, many people are drawn to Bitcoin, and I wouldn't want to put a political slant on all of those people, but it's something that's very central is that I think Bitcoin does not look externally for regulation in itself. I think we build a system where hopefully the least amount of regulation is possible, and it is incentive compatible for participants in that network. So Bitcoin is a system where hopefully individuals can trade and interact with other individuals without intermediaries. And I think that is very close to what we might call a fundamental right.
Absolutely. Very, very fundamental. The ability to transact with who you want to transact with. It's such a foreign concept, for people in the first world, because every transaction almost has to go through an intermediary. Like almost everything they do, just getting paid from their job, just getting a Starbucks coffee. For the most part, people use debit cards and credit cards and things like that. So yeah, I think Bitcoin is going to bring this discussion to the forefront. Absolutely. So great points, John. Will, last points on this topic.
Yeah, I like the figure of Bitcoin being a platform to enhance what we commonly consider our existing human rights: right to privacy, right to kind of a safe haven for our savings, something that we'd like to see, and right to transact freely, right of free speech. I think all of those can be benefited and kind of bolstered by the technology of Bitcoin itself. And I think the most important thing for us to focus on as builders now, and something that I hold dear, is getting it in the hands of as many people as possible to experience those improved rights, things that they expect in their daily life, so they can understand the magic of what it can offer as a technology, so that they are ready to defend it once it becomes more on the radar of centralized authorities around the world. I think we're going to see a lot of things moving there. So get it to as many people and have them experience it is building constituencies that will only continue to make Bitcoin more robust and anti-fragile.
Absolutely. Give them a taste. Give them a taste of freedom. Give them a taste to see what it actually is like to be able to transact freely. I mean, guys, it's a huge, amazing, incredibly satisfying feeling to be able to send something to somebody across the country, across the world, without having to pay huge fees, without having to ask for permission from anybody. This is huge. And I think that, as Bitcoin continues to get distributed to more and more people, the whole idea of remittance is just going to go away, right? Why do we need remittance and asking permission for somebody to take percentages of our wealth away when we just want to transfer a little bit to our family members or something like that, right? So it's going to be interesting to see. And again, let's just give them a taste. This software is completely open, completely free source or open source. We encourage, as I said earlier, we continue to encourage everybody and as many people as possible to try to get into Bitcoin. Mike, final comments on this topic?
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and echo what Will and John said. Basically, Bitcoin can be used as a tool for these human rights. And, I think it's important to tell everybody about Bitcoin. I mean, everybody I know already knows about Bitcoin, but, just kind of keep spreading the word and, hopefully one day they'll get it.
Yeah, I've already exhausted the patience of my family, friends, coworkers, and everything else. So this is why we have the show, guys. So I definitely feel you on that, Mike. Yeah, everybody I know is pretty much either into Bitcoin or hates Bitcoin. That's pretty much where we're at now. So thanks again, guys, for your comments. I'm gonna just read a couple of quotes from the article real quick here. Because I found a quote for every one of the points that he made. So under Bitcoin is money, Nick says, despite unprecedented levels of price volatility through its young life, Bitcoin has strongly demonstrated its ability to be used as money around the world. And we see this. There was just a recent study of dark markets that came out where, the chain analysis companies are starting to see which currencies are used the most in dark markets. It turns out that Bitcoin is used like over 70% of the time, because it turns out even criminals still want money, or something that we can refer to as money, for their goods and services. So that's pretty interesting to see. And then under where he says, under the land grab, he says, there are only 57 million square miles of land on Earth. And similarly, there will only be 21 million Bitcoin. So that's really a great point, I thought, that he put in his article. And then he says, Bitcoin is a game. His point for this is, he says, well, here's what I think. I think the author is more referring here to the game theory. When Nick talks about Bitcoin as a game, he's referring to the game theory where the rules were preset by the protocol itself and everyone must adhere to them to play. So to even begin playing, you have to follow the rules that was already preset forth by that very first node, by that very first set of code put forth by Satoshi. And then he says, Bitcoin works like email. Of course, this is a good analogy. Email addresses can be shared with anybody, but only the password holder can access received messages. So this is, again, something to take to new people, to explain Bitcoin to them, how it's sort of like email, sort of like money over email. That's a good analogy sometimes for new people coming into the space. And then finally, he does say under Bitcoin as a human right, he says, if communicating on the internet is if communicating on the internet is freedom of speech, then Bitcoin is freedom of speech money. So great point by that. And again, I encourage everybody to check out this article by Nick Batia. I believe it was Nick Batia. He's got a lot of articles, guys. This is the guy that came up with the Lightning Network reference rate. So a lot of great articles here to check out from Nick Batia. So with that aside, guys, I think we can go ahead and do the outro, find out where everybody is coming from. John, where can we find out more about you, sir?
You can find me on Twitter, JF Newberry. That's NEWBERY.
Awesome, John. Thanks again for joining us, man. Will, where can we find out more about you and your amazing company, Lightning Network Pizza?
Awesome. You can find me at WLRVS at Will Reads on Twitter, and you can check out Lightning Pizza at LN Pizza, or Fold at Fold App. We'll be releasing some pretty cool stuff over the next few months, so looking forward to share it with you all.
Yeah, guys, Fold is a great company as well. They just started, I think, their Sats back program. You guys are killing it. Fold is killing it. Light Network Pizza is killing it. So, guys, next time you're going to order a pizza on a Friday night, come on, spin up a Lightning Network wallet and connect with these guys. So awesome, Will. Thanks, man. Then we got Mike. Mike, where can we find out more about you and your company, sir?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Olthoff, OLTHOFF, or you can follow CoinCards at CoinCards on Twitter. Or check our website, coincards.com. We've recently expanded to the States, so we've got about 150 gift cards in the States and about 350 in Canada.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Make sure to check that, guys. Check out that, guys. I mean, this guy's a great company. This company, CoinCards, BitRefill, these guys are helping people use your Bitcoin, helping people get more Bitcoin. So really, really great company, Mike. Thanks again, man. And again, just expanded into the United States. So that is awesome. You guys are in Canada and the United States. So check them out, CoinCards. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining. We really, really appreciate it. We'll have more for you again, of course, on the next Bitcoin News Show, scheduled to be here again Sunday after next. And hopefully I will finally iron out all the issues with Zoom. We seem to have got everything except for the video working. So everything's working except for the video. We'll get that working next time. And again, guys, really, really appreciate you joining the show. If you guys have any questions, please join us in the comments, and we'll be again making more and more content. So if you guys follow us when you get a chance on Twitter at CryptoCastNet. And until next time, guys, please keep talking Bitcoin. We'll see you guys later. See ya.